Every single day, you get African history in school. The only thing is, it's been whitened. Or distorted. What was the most important, economic factors or race? I just want to show of hands, because when it was created as an institution, it was nothing to do with race. This particular system, based on white supremacist thought and action, is about 300 years old. When you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place and stay in it. Carter G. Woodson, Miseducation of the Negro, published in 1933. What do you see? Is it racist? Why is it racist? This is why you know it's racist. White, 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 white. We live in England. There should be at least one black person in that image. This came out in 1996, August. It came out that African Caribbean students surpassed their white counterparts. So, I've got a sneaking feeling standards have dropped. Doesn't make sense to me, because if the standards have dropped, it's dropped for everyone, so the white children should still outperform the black children. Last year in October, basically, a group of white Louisiana college students dressed in blackface reenacted the Jena Six assault. The Jena Six on the river. In the video, 3 students with mud smeared across their bodies stomp on a false student, while 2 participants are heard to say Jena Six. This was October the 2nd last year. One man can also be saying, "Niggers, put the noose on." Last fall, when 2 black high school students sat under the white tree on their campus, white students responded by hanging nooses from the tree. So think about this, there's a tree, it's called a white tree, black students sit under the white tree, next day, nooses. Who used to get lynched? Steve Biko, the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressor. You see, if someone controls your mind, they control your action. Just like Brother Henry spoke about the postcode thing. When we do sessions with young people, and we say to them, okay, you're 13, you're 14, you're 15, you might be 17, and you're into your postcode thing, what happens when you start work? When you start going to university? Are you going to stay in your little postcode area? It's ridiculous. But this is what happens when people don't believe they have anything going for them, or they don't see themselves represented positively in that which they are being educated. Of course they're going to cling to foolishness. And this is often what happens. As long as the minds are controlled, you know what the actions are going to be. Occasionally, it's mistakenly held that Europeans enslaved Africans for racist reasons. European planters and miners enslaved Africans for economic reasons, so that their labour power could be exploited. Indeed, it would have been impossible to open up the New World and to use it as a constant generator of wealth had it not been for African labour. There were no alternatives. So therefore, according to Walter Rodney, he says, Europeans at home and abroad found it necessary to rationalise that exploitation in racist terms as well. The power of the master must be absolute to render the submission of the slave perfect. It's the only way it works. Who went and saw this film? People were coming up to me and they were saying, oh, there's that film. I said, it's Hollywood. Fighting the Wilberforce. Since January last year, I did a series of lectures called Fighting the Wilberforce. But I got to meet some of these luminaries, and it was very interesting, because they were always on the same thing. Well, it's good, you know, the history of slavery is going to be part of the national curriculum, and I went, do you think that is dangerous if there is no context with regards to what Africans contributed before that? And to me, if they do that to our children in school, you might as well, the generation that's out there half going crazy now, we will inherit something worse than that if we ever did that, because then they would absolutely believe that's all they were. Horace Campbell, he said, when in 1783 the abolitionists began their campaign, Lord North, the Prime Minister of here, reminded them that the slave trade had become a necessity to every European nation. My old mate Blair said he jacked it in last year. New Nation 2005, look at this. It's time for Slavery Memorial Day. I don't see reparations as the way forward. Do you not think there's a little bit of confusion there? Why do we want another statue for pigeons to relieve themselves on, instead of using that money to try and create an institution where our children, all of our children, can learn something? No African has ever received compensation for being reduced to 3/5 human, articles of commerce, yet the slave masters, plantation owners, received millions in compensation for loss of property and kept their stolen land. You control the land, you control the economics, you have the power. if you control the land. You control the resources. When I used to teach at Goldsmiths, I used to have to teach about Immanuel Kant, one of the founding fathers, Enlightenment, philosophy, you know, this wonderful stuff. But this is one of the things what he said about Africa, black people. He said this fellow was quite black, a clear indication that what he said was stupid. The Negroes of Africa have by nature no feelings that rise above the trifling. Although many of them have even been set free, still not a single one was ever found who presented anything great in art or science or any other praiseworthy quality. Africans are less intelligent than Westerners. It says DNA pioneer. Fury at James Watson's theory, and this is a quote from him. All our social policies are based on the fact that their intelligence is the same as ours. Whereas all the testing says, not really. According to science, if you want to claim something as a scientific fact, you do it how many times? 3. 3 times. Because the first time is happenstance. It just happened. The second time is coincidence. 2 incidents. The third time is scientific proven fact. That's all you need. He apparently was going to speak at the Science Museum. As usual, people jumped up and down and he got banned. He should have been allowed to speak. And then people could have tackled him on the merit of his science. Let me show you this, quickly. This is why I don't really deal in notions of race. Yeah? That's why I talk about the human family. Because when you deal in notions of race in a crude way, you deny the history of the human family. This is the oldest image, and I still stand to be corrected, to my knowledge, of the members of the human family. It's found in the tomb of Ramesses III, 1200 BC. This is the ancient Egyptian. This, the Indo-European. So you see, even the white racist Europeans who reclassified and declassified called themselves what? Caucasian, Caucasus Asians, Indo-Europeans. They're telling you exactly there's no such continent as Europe. You tell me where the water is that divides Europe from Asia. So, we have the ancient Egyptian, Indo-European, the other blacks in Africa. What's the difference? 3 tassels and 2 tassels. And this is the Semite, Arab or Jew, or Shemite. This, for me, is one of the most significant things about this drawing. This is leopard skin, or they would call it panther skin. What do they tell us about leopards? And they're usually talking about criminals. What can't a leopard do?
Change its spots.
Yeah. But when we think about that, we think of criminals, don't we? But that's not how the ancients had it, which is why go and get out your old Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan films, and when he's done, beat up all the leopards, lions, spoken to them, eaten with them, and controlled a few Africans, you'll see that the African chief has a what? Leopard skin. Throw around his shoulder, whatever. It means you don't change your spots. It means you signify truth to your word. That's why the ancients used it. It's another thing that has been inverted. That's why I say African history is everywhere. We just don't recognize it. You ever see this image of the Sphinx? You notice most of them are no-nos. Same time when Kant was writing his crazy stuff, Count Volney said this: there are people now forgotten, discovered while others were yet barbarians, the elements of the arts and sciences. A race of men now rejected for their black skin and woolly hair, founded on the studies of the laws of nature, those civil and religious systems which still governs the universe. So my argument is, why do we always only get one side of the story and not the other? I think it's deliberate. I know it's deliberate. Just quickly, it is worse than stupid to allow people's education to be under the control of those who seek not the progress of the people, but their use as a means of making themselves rich and powerful. W.B. Du Bois. Marcus Garvey says before we can properly help the people, we have to destroy the old education that teaches them that somebody's keeping them back and that God has forgotten them and that they can't rise because of their colour. We can only build with faith in ourselves and with self-reliance, believing in our own possibilities that we can rise to the highest in God's creation. Me, I know that I'm an African, but basically I was saying it took me time to learn that I was an African. Because if I invested in what I was taught Africans were at school, that's why I would want to distance myself from that. But when I started to go to Moonshot, where Miss Phoenix created in 1972 as a 15-year-old boy, I was introduced to African history. And I lasted about 3 months at school after that. Seriously. Because from being taught that you've done nothing to being taught what you have contributed, that's a mind-blowing experience.